Today, Bitcoin rises as the Fed kicks off its policy meeting in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Donald Trump teases a new DeFi crypto platform as an aide for Kamala Harris reportedly says that she'll be more supportive of crypto. And Cynthia Lo Bessette of Fidelity Digital Asset Management discusses institutional adoption of crypto from Wyoming's blockchain symposium. Welcome to CNBC's Crypto World. I'm Mackenzie Sigalos. Digital currencies are mixed as the Fed's meeting in Jackson Hole, Wyoming kicks off. Now, what are investors listening for? Well, obviously, they want to hear if the Fed will cut rates next month, and more importantly, how much they'll cut. We should hear more about that from Fed Chair Powell in a speech on Friday. Now, by noon Eastern, Bitcoin was back on the rise, climbing above $60,000. Meanwhile, Ether was pretty much flat, and Polygon's Matic token jumped more than 6% after Coinbase said that it would support Polygon's transition to its new Pol token. Okay, let's talk about the top stories. Bitcoin mining company Bitfarms is acquiring competitor Stronghold Digital Mining. Bitfarms says the merger will cost around $125 million in stock and around another $50 million of debt. The deal is expected to close Q1 of 2025 after approval from regulators. Now, this deal comes as M&A in the Bitcoin mining space remains red hot, and Bitfarms is actually pushing back on attempts to make it the target of an acquisition as well. The company rejected a $950 million takeover offer from Riot, which claims to own a nearly 19% stake of Bitfarms as of August 13th. Stronghold stock exploded on the news, closing 82.5% higher after the announcement. Bitfarms stock was relatively flat at that same time. Next, as Vice President Kamala Harris gears up to take the stage tonight at the DNC and accept her party's nomination for president, an aide for her campaign reportedly says that she supports policies to expand crypto innovation. According to Bloomberg, Brian Nelson, a senior policy advisor for the campaign, said Harris will, quote, support policies that ensure that emerging technologies and that sort of industry can continue to grow. Now, those comments were reportedly made when he was asked about her crypto stance during a Bloomberg roundtable at the Democratic National Convention. There have been rumblings that Vice President Harris would take a different stance on crypto than President Biden. Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna told us at Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville that he's in touch with the campaign and hoping to shape their thinking around the industry. We reached out to the campaign to confirm this reporting and what specifically Harris might do for the crypto industry, but haven't heard back yet. Now, we should mention that Trump has positioned himself as increasingly crypto-friendly, and just this morning, the former president and Republican nominee promoted a soon-to-launch crypto platform called the Defiant Ones, spelled with DeFi, to be clear. Now, you can read more about that story from me over at CNBC.com. Last, the former CEO of a Kansas bank is headed to prison for more than 24 years after falling for a scam and leading the bank to failure. Shane Haynes fell victim to pig butchering. It's a long-term investment scam where the perpetrators direct victims to fraudulent investment platforms. As CEO of Heartland Tri-State Bank, Haynes stole more than $47 million of the bank's funds, turned it into crypto, and transferred it to wallets controlled by unidentified third parties. This resulted in the FDIC taking over last summer and wiped out the bank's stock. Now, the ex-CEO's longtime neighbor, whose businesses used the bank, told CNBC that Haynes confronted him for help. The neighbor said scammers convinced Haynes they were savvy crypto investors. Along with taking money from the bank, Haynes also embezzled funds from a local church and investment club. You can read that full story over at CNBC.com. All right, for our main story, we're continuing our coverage of the Wyoming Blockchain Symposium, which is wrapping up just as the Fed's Jackson Hole meeting starts up today. Now, while at the conference, Crypto World's Tanea McKeel spoke to Cynthia Lo Bessette, head of Fidelity Digital Asset Management, to get her take on institutional crypto adoption.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us on Crypto World today. It's been a great conference. I want to start with Bitcoin ETFs because it really has been the year of the Bitcoin ETF. It came in January, and trading has been, for the price of Bitcoin itself, has been a little bit range bound for several months now. I'm wondering what the client response has been. They've been successful, these products, but when you're having conversations with your clients about allocation and portfolio management, what are those conversations like?
Well, we always start with education. And so when clients are interested in gaining access to these assets. We offer a range of ways for them to gain access, but we also provide a tremendous amount of education, helping clients to understand what these assets are, how to think about them as financial assets in their portfolios, and really offer them that level of assistance with education to give them information on how they want to assess their portfolio allocations.
Is there like a key theme that has come up repeatedly, at least one that you've noticed? I mean, education is so vast. Yeah. What is kind of a recurring theme that you're noticing?
When clients express interest in the assets, they do often ask not just how should I be thinking about these assets, but they do, want to understand what a portfolio allocation, should look like, and there really is no one answer for investors or any, group of investors. I think, the approach that we've, taken in these conversations is to start with understanding, what the client's risk profile is. And then from there, continuing down the path of helping the client to understand how they could be thinking about this asset. Is it an inflation hedge for them in their assets, in their portfolio? And that's one way to think about how to build an allocation. Is this asset a good representation of a technology asset? And then where in their portfolio, would they be able to think about how to incorporate an allocation from that standpoint?
Well, that's interesting because Bitcoin really does fit both narratives. It can and has been an inflation hedge, and it can and has acted like a risk asset. And I'm wondering if your clients are comfortable living in that gray area. I know it can be really tough to get people to understand a new concept. Like, this is a very new thing, and I think oftentimes people really try to fit the Bitcoin narrative into something that they're already familiar with.
Yeah, and as we are talking with clients about how to establish an investment thesis, you could get caught up in cross narratives, but as we are talking to clients about how they are establishing their investment thesis, we encourage them to think about this over the longer term. And so whether you are viewing this asset as an inflation hedge or you're viewing this asset as a tech asset, there's a long-term view that comes with each of those investment theses.
I said this yesterday. When I'm talking with investors, everyone always wants to know what the next crypto ETF is going to be. Is there going to be a Solana ETF? I am guessing that that's not how you guys are thinking about innovation. But give me a reality check on that. Has that come up for you? And how are you thinking about innovating now that these long anticipated Bitcoin and Ether ETFs are here? What do you do now?
Yeah, what's next? We do get that question quite a bit from a range of people around us, and the way that we think about how we prioritize our product development is driven by a couple of things. One of which is what are our clients looking for as they are looking to gain broader access to the ecosystem. And while I think a lot of people might think about looking at market cap in the way to establish what's next, we're also thinking about this from the standpoint of how these assets might comprise a diversified portfolio, and how to think about portfolio construction in being able to establish a broader ecosystem investment, and that is a big part of how we are looking at product development. We would like to be able to see more products and more strategies that will be expressed in a range of vehicle types to allow for all investors to be able to gain access to this ecosystem.
So what does that look like? I mean, we've been talking about ETFs and crypto for about a decade, maybe more.
Yes.
And is it just Bitcoin and Ether for now? From an institutional standpoint.
Yeah. Well, we did see that recently with the withdrawal of two applications for a Solana ETP. there's maybe, in addition to both the client demand and also the market readiness and looking at the ability to be able to see scalable investments across individual assets, there's a regulatory aspect as well. And being able to see all of those elements being able to coincide may take some time to be able to have the next big ETP.
Crypto is a new asset class for everybody. How has it changed your business? I mean, how different is it just because we have this new asset class? So how has it changed asset management, and how are things still the same as they were before?
Yeah. So asset management, in the way that we have built out investment capabilities at Fidelity, that has not changed in the way that we have approached the way to build a digital asset management capability. What we have found that is new and very different is that the underlying technology for digital assets and more importantly, the data and the data models that are required in order to be able to consume all of the information around these individual assets is very different. And so we've spent a good amount of time over the last several months really looking at how to build an infrastructure to support true on-chain investments.
Okay, that's all for Crypto World today, but we'll be back again tomorrow, and we'll see you then.